Welcome back to the weekend wrap. No production, just my thoughts. As always, please like and subscribe, share with a friend, a colleague, a relative, an associate, an enemy, any and all in between. I appreciate it. It always feels a bit weird when I do these on a Monday instead of a Sunday, but when there is as much action as there was over this bank holiday weekend, I mean, yeah, it was only right. I had to get everything in and working, and I thank everyone for obviously tuning in to the content over the weekend as well. There hasn't been any episodes this week, but I hope that the content that has been on the channel has been to your liking. But as always, let's get into it because there's a huge amount of stuff to go through and I don't want this video to end up being an hour long. Let's start off with Friday. So Good Friday over in the States, Top Rank show headlined by Oscar Valdez and Liam Wilson. Seniesa Estrada and Yokasta Valle was the chief support co-main as undisputed at minimum weight. Let's talk about that fight real quick to start off with. Now, I've actually been able to see that fight, but because I knew the results of the of both of those fights before I watched them, I didn't score them in any great shakes. But it's as I expected, to be honest. I expected Seniesa Estrada to win. She did. It was a lot more spirited than I thought it would be. But in terms of scoring, I mean, sort of, yeah, 96, 94, 97, 93 I felt was fair, which is kind of how I had predicted it early on. I think at most I might have said I could see a 98, 92, but yeah, it was one of those ones. Seniesa didn't look great. Yokasta looked better than she normally does, or at least that she does at that level of opposition, I should say. But it looks as if the weight is finally starting to catch up to Seniesa having to make that minimum weight limit. And I would assume that this is probably her last fight down there, and she will be moving up to light flyweight, where maybe her energy reserves might be a bit better, punch resistance might be a bit better, punching power may sort of come back as well. But yeah, no real shakes to say about that. I know Valle's team weren't happy. There was they said there was an intentional headbutt in the first round. I didn't see it as intentional. I actually saw Yokasta sort of lunge in with her head, and as such it was her that kind of initiated the contact. But here's what it is. They want a rematch. I'm sure a rematch can happen down the line, but it just won't be at minimum weight because, yeah, I don't see Seniesa staying there any longer. She did what she wanted to do, get undisputed. I think she's moving up. Valdez and Wilson. I haven't seen the full fight. I've only seen the highlights. I have access to the fight, so I can watch it. It's just I wasn't able to. I didn't have enough time. There's so much different stuff on this weekend. It's been crazy. But one thing I said prior to the fight is that I feel like this could be Oscar Valdez's last fight at this level. I did think he would win the fight, but I just thought it might be one war too many. Now, from what I saw in the highlights, he did get hurt a little bit in the first round, but managed to sort of come back after that, take it to Wilson and catch him really heavily. I think it was in the 5th or the 6th, and then Wilson was kind of almost in autopilot mode for the rest of that round, and then again in the 7th where he just finally got outworked and the war of attrition was lost and the referee jumped in to wave it off. But Valdez, he actually looked fairly rejuvenated from what I thought he would be. So yeah, maybe he's got another one or two more in him at this level. And chances are now he will end up being the WBO super featherweight champ because, Navarrete is moving up to 135 to face Denis Berinchyk instead. So as soon as he moves up, he's probably going to vacate that WBO. Oscar Valdez will, be christened champion yet again. But we'll wait and see on that one. Moving over to Saturday, the only fight I can really speak about in great depth is the Arslan Goulamirian and Zurdo Ramirez fight. Now, to me, I thought that was a really, really good fight. It was non-stop from sort of round 1 to round 12. But what has impressed me recently, Zurdo Ramirez always used to be considered, weight bully, which he was. He wasn't the most skillful. He had a lot of, C plus B minus level opposition on his record. Had a very padded sort of record. There was a couple decent fights here and there, but he was never taking on the best that he could take on in his divisions. Now, I'm not going to say Arslan Goulamirian is the best when it comes to the cruiserweights, but that being said, he was a legit reigning champion, even though he'd been out of the ring for God knows how long, almost a year and a half at this point. But Zurdo, he boxed very well. He boxed. When he was boxing and moving, like Arslan Goulamirian couldn't keep with him. When he decided to just sit in the pocket, stay and trade and just outwork Goulamirian, beat him to the counters, slick uppercuts on the inside from that southpaw stance. It was just a great battle to watch. Goulamirian had some success sort of in the early half of the fight, sort of round 4. I think it was sort of like maybe around 4, 6 and 7, somewhere around there, but nothing ever really troubled Zurdo. He showed obviously he's got a chin, but he's got good lateral movement, he's got good upper body movement, good defensive positioning, and he just seemed very comfortable to sit in the pocket and trade with him, and I have to applaud him. It was, I feel like ever since the Dimitri Bivol loss, he's stepped his game up, and he has obviously been working with Malik Scott, and I think his coach is a Asian guy. I think his name's William Chu or something like that. He definitely seems to have been working on his point selection, foot placement, foot movement, and clearly at these weights he can't be just barreling forward on the front foot, just overpowering people, because it's not 168 anymore. It's not even 175. Like, these guys are more time than not 215 to 220 coming down to 200-pound limit, and you're probably sitting around the 205 to 210 regions, so these guys are normally just naturally bigger than you to begin with. So you got to use more of your boxing skills, and he certainly did that. So big congrats to him. Obviously, what was his name? Alexis Rocha was on the undercard against what's his name? Something Lawson. Derek Lawson. Can't remember. You guys know who it is. Because I'm sure he faced was it Mark Lawson? He faced Virgil Ortiz couple in his last fight, but Rocha made hard work of it, but it he got the victory in the end. He got the stoppage in the end. But that Santillon fight has probably taken something out of him, because he doesn't look the same as he was looking prior to that fight. Not that he was ever looked like in any great shakes, but his level may have considerably dropped since then. But other than that, there were some other pretty good fights on the undercard, but I don't really remember the names of them. I was sort of in and out of sleep, and the only fight I went back to rewatch was the main event. Moving over to the PBC on Prime card. Now, I haven't seen it in its entirety. I was able to watch a couple of the fights via other means. Now, I was expecting my usual website to have it uploaded, but they didn't even have it up, which is surprising. But I've seen some of the fights. First one, before I even get into the fights on the main card, Kamel Moten had a very, very good display on the prelims on the YouTube section. Now, what I will say is, for the age of 17, Floyd Mayweather has a very good knack of, when he finds like the really, really young talent, or works with those young talents, you can really see the high ceiling that they have. They don't necessarily always reach it. Unfortunately, you got Adrian Broner. To a degree, I guess you've got Tank, who you could say maybe has reached stardom, but he hasn't reached his full potential. At this point, probably never will. But yeah, Kamel Moten, looking at him, he he's better than Devin Haney, like when Devin Haney was 17. Now, Devin obviously has honed his craft and become an elite level guy. Now, you always saw the raw ingredients there, but Kamel definitely looks like if he keeps on the right trajectory and he stays disciplined and stays focused, which is not always easy to do, especially for these young ones who get the fame early. But if he can do all of that, he is a legit multi-weight world champion in the making. I really do like what I see. I'm just worried that it won't, the levels, the discipline, the concentration, all of that stuff may not stay there. But wait and see. But anyway, no, really good performance. Didn't get a stoppage in this one, but basically bossed every single round. His opponent was 7-0-2, so it wasn't even like he was facing a scrub. Like, his opponent was coming to win. I think his opponent was about 21, 22. So he's like still a young guy as well. Never tasted defeat before. So, big ups to Kamel Moulton. And I just hope that he continues on the trajectory that he's on and stays disciplined. Outside of that, though, we got to talk about the last fight on that prelims, which was Sergey Bohachuk against Brian Mendoza. Now, I've christened Brian Mendoza the real-life Rocky Balboa because this guy's heart and desire is unquestionable, it's unmatched. But his levels, the thing is, he's a good boxer, but it's almost like if he gets overwhelmed, then he stops trying to box and just starts trying to look for one big shot. Because it worked against Sebastian Fundora, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work against everyone else. Now, he did have some big success against Bohachuk in the 11th round, but by that time it's way too late. And Bohachuk was he's pressure. It was just nothing but pressure. He had 23 victories with 23 KOs prior. And the one fight he had lost was via KO. So I picked Brian Mendoza to win because I thought that when it comes down to it, Bohachuk has been knocked out. Mendoza never has. And Mendoza does have an equalizer if he can get into rhythm, if he can enact his game plan. But the fact that Bohachuk just had him push back and pin back round after round after round was actually very, very surprising to me. I've seen him fight a couple of times, but I've never seen him fight with that much, like, not just passion and aggression, but even like the poise, making sure that his guard was tight at all times, but just the way he was throwing his shots, everything to me was just whoom. And yeah, Brian Mendoza just didn't have anything to combat it with apart from the odd big shot here or there, which most of the time Bohachuk saw coming and was able to ride. And then by the end of the fight, you look at Brian Mendoza and you wondered, should his team be pulling him out? Because even though he's still being competitive, he's still lucid on his feet, and he still kind of throws shots here and there, taking a beat and taking a pummeling, his face at this point is lopsided. I think it was his left side of his face. His cheek out here literally is looking lumped up like the elephant, man. It reminded me a little bit of the Erickson Lubin fight with Sebastian Fundora, where his face was just a mess from all different swellings and whatnot. And yeah, Brian Mendoza's face he wore the scars and the of battle that night. But look, credit to him again. So he's lost 3 fights now, but he's still, or is it 4? This might be the 4th fight, but he's still never been knocked out, never been dropped off his feet. So you don't want any more of those, and you don't want that to be your legacy, that you've never been stopped, dropped, and you've got a great chin. But I don't know. He might end up becoming a gatekeeper to the top division now, but if he is, it's gonna take some very good locksmiths to get through that gate. I'll tell you that from now, because yeah, if you're not of the level, thou shalt not pass, as they say. Now, that being said, I haven't seen the Julio Cesar Martinez fight, nor do I care to be honest. I think the Bohachuk and Mendoza fight should have been on the main broadcast, and Martinez should have been on the undercard, or that prelim section, because there was no reason for him to be there apart from the fact that he's got a world title, but he hasn't done anything to defend it in God knows how long, or he hasn't defended against anyone decent. He never unified when he was supposed to with the rest of the division, so yeah, no real interest in that. I haven't seen the what is it, Michael Zarafa and Erislandy Lara fight. Now I picked Lara to win, but I picked via decision. He got the KO. I haven't even seen the highlights of that one yet. I will do by tomorrow, when obviously I got to do breakdown, if that is a fight that we end up choosing. But yeah, congrats to him. He got the victory as I expected him to. Now let's talk about Rolly Romero and Isaac Cruz. Now I said, what did I say? I think I said that Isaac Cruz gets him out of there between rounds 5 and 8. Yeah, 8th round knockout. So that part stuck pretty much. But the fact that Rolly Romero was, basically on Bambi legs from the first round truly tells you, number one, that this guy he has to be the worst world champion in the history of the sport. I know we've had some zingers before. People have made mention of people like Charles Martin and those type of oppositions. But yeah, no, I'm sorry. Like, when it comes to an actual skills and a level of competency in the ring, yeah, Rolly Romero is leaps and bounds the worst that I've ever seen. And the fact that he was gifted a world title, basically it must have been bought. Like, money had to have been paid, because there's no way that you win a world title under any other circumstances. Even with he was supposed to be fighting Alberto Puello, or was that supposed to be Ishmael Barroso supposed to fight Puello? All of a sudden he gets this mystery drug situation, which we still haven't heard anything about now. Rolly gets brought in to come and clean up the work and take the get the big opportunity. All of a sudden, then he goes life and death, gets dropped, and then the fight ends up getting stopped, even though, number one, Rolly's not landing any punches, and Ishmael Barroso is the one that's actually landing with the counters. And Tony Weeks jumps in, stops that, gifts him a world title. Then he runs from the O'Hara Davis fight, he was the mandatory for the shot. Then chooses to face Isaac Cruz on Prime on the undercard, rather than taking the Ryan Garcia fight on the main event of a DAZN card, where you would have got paid a lot more money, and then started laughing about it. Well, I took a harder fight for less money. How can people criticize me for that? Well, they can criticize you because you're a damn idiot. Why else would you, who in their right mind takes a harder fight for less money than a quote unquote easier fight for more money? What logic? There's no logic to that. There's no amount of pride. There's no warrior's code that permits that to make sense. And not even just that, you're going up against someone that legit raises your profile. You don't just make more money on the front side, you can make more money on the back end. That's what the PBC people love to talk about. You make more money there, you build your stardom, you raise your profile even further. You're on a platform that's dedicated to sports only, which means that everyone who's there is actually there to watch your fight, rather than just having a subscription to Prime Video or next day delivery. All of this stuff. But then you gloat about it, and you're going to be the face of PBC. So, I didn't see the Jordan Plant post-fight interview, but from what I heard, she stuck it on him in terms of, well, you said you was going to do this, you said you was going to do that. What happened? Why didn't you do it? And I need to watch that, because, yeah, you got to answer for yourself. It's just horrendous work all the way around. Now, part of it is because he's stupid, and then the other part of it is because his management team don't have his best interest in mind. Because if they did, they would have never allowed him to take a dangerous fight for less money, because he was going to get knocked out in both of them either way. But you might as well take the one that's going to pay you probably 2 or 3 times as much. But yeah, Bambi legs on round 1, and then I still need to go back and watch the rest of it. But from all the other rounds I saw, Isaac Cruz pretty much, I couldn't really see anywhere that Rolly was winning these other rounds. I saw one of the scorecards, what's the guy's name? I think it's Carlos Flores or something like that. He's the same guy that was in the Navarrete fight with Wilson, where he gave him the long count and then gave him the extra 10 seconds with the mouth guard and all of that stuff. It's the same guy. So now I gotta keep an eye on him, because he definitely seems like he's on somebody's payroll with the amount of high profile decisions that he's making, shall we say. Because he had Rolly winning the fight. He only gave Cruz the first round as a 10-8, whereas everyone else gave it 10-9, and then he gave Rolly every other round except for, I think, the 8th round or the 7th round. So just before, obviously, it got stopped in the 8th. Crazy. But yeah, that's that one. Yeah, I don't care what Rolly does next, but what I want to hear, how he goes about this loss, because yeah, the tank one you might be able to get away from. You can't get away from this one, and I don't think there's any amount of rebuilding that's gonna think that he is easy, that he's gonna be in contention for anything again. If anything, he's gonna be a tune-up for all of the up-and-coming guys at 140 stepping up into that world level. He's going to become the official gatekeeper, whether it's for PBC or whether it's as a free agent. That's what I kind of see it. But yeah, moving from there. All right, Tim Tszyu versus Sebastian Fundora. Now, everyone knows I went very, very clear on this one. Tim Tszyu KO, and I had it inside 7 rounds is what I said. It wouldn't take any more than that. I expected it to be in the 5th, and okay, I was wrong. However, I say I was wrong with a caveat, with an asterisk, because you look at the fight, Tim Tszyu, the first 2 rounds, round 1, round 2, basically he was catching and countering Sebastian Fundora's jab. He was finding range. He was actually finding his range quite quickly to get past that big long frame of Sebastian. He got on the inside, busted up his nose and his mouth from round 2, catching him with really big shots to the point where Sebastian, he started to, I'm not going to say he started to wobble, but he started to have this laugh on his face he kind of gets when he realizes he's in trouble. And that happened on a couple of occasions. He's like, oh, and I said, okay, this is gonna be pretty easy work. And then right at the end of the round, you've got Tim Tszyu who tripped, obviously because Sebastian Fundora's these big long legs. He trips over his leg when he was entering in to try and throw a shot, trips over the leg. He gets kind of guided by Fundora into his opposite, his left arm, and it happens to hit the point of his elbow. I don't know if it was the actual point or the top part, like, where the forearm is, but he basically careered and vened into it. Bang, top of the head, big gash opens up, big split, and at that point the blood just starts streaming down, and it won't stop, and it's just faces a crimson mask pretty much. Now they keep saying that yeah, they were working on it, but I don't think they had the right stuff in that corner. That blood, really, if they had the right medicines, that thing should have stopped. That should have stopped bleeding out like that. It would have been traces here and there, but all they seem to do is have a little bit here and then put a big chunk of Vaseline on, and then as soon as he gets back into the ring, one shot to jolt the head back and the whole thing starts streaming again. Now, personally, one thing I will say is Tim Tszyu, yes, he's a warrior. He's all heart and everything, but if it was me, sensibly, you're saying that you can't see from the 3rd round. You're having trouble seeing anything. You can't see anything in the 3rd. You can't see anything in the 4th. If I was him, from between that 3rd and that 4th round, I would have said, dude, I can't see anything. Like, it was an elbow, it wasn't a punch. I'm not about to lose my belts, like, in like this. Pull the fight. I can't see. Take me out. We can run it back in 4 or 5 months or something. That's what I would have done. Because warrior or not, like, the accident, the cut wasn't caused by a legal punch or a legal move. It was caused by an illegal elbow. Not saying that he threw the elbow intentionally, he didn't, but ultimately an elbow in boxing is illegal, whether it's intended or not. So an illegal shot has caused this big cut that's now impaired and stopped your ability to properly defend yourself or to properly attack the opponent. Why would you carry on? Now, to be fair, when I was watching the fight, I had it. It's hard because I had it scored either 6 rounds to 6 or 7 rounds to 5 for, 7 rounds to 5 to Sebastian Fundora, because there were a couple of rounds towards like in the middle and the later part where Tim Tszyu actually managed to kind of get on top, and he did manage to heavily affect Fundora. But just with him staying disciplined, something that I didn't actually think Fundora could do, stay disciplined behind that jab, just keep popping the jab, he was just landing more shots, unfortunately. Even though Tim Tszyu was a lot more accurate, he had, I think his punch counts or something like 44% of his power shots or of his shots overall to Fundora's like 20, I think it might have been like 21% or something like that. But he just landed more. It wasn't a huge amount more. I think it was about 20 punches more overall, but he threw about 250 more. So when you look at that, there was no way that Tim Tszyu realistically was gonna get that victory, considering especially it's a PBC fight. You've got Sebastian Fundora, who is an actual PBC fighter, and Tim Tszyu basically is like, he only went to the PBC initially to get the Charlo fight for Undisputed, and then every time that he's now worked with them, something always seems to kind of go awry. He never got what he wanted when he went over there, but yet he kept trying to do business with them. It doesn't really make much sense to me. So you live and you learn. The best thing that he can hope for now is that Sebastian Fundora ducks a Terence Crawford fight, goes to fight Spence for that WBC, has to vacate the WBO, and maybe the WBO, even though Josh Kelly is the number one in the WBO, maybe they will say no. Tim, you can have a crack back at your title facing Terence Crawford, and then the winner of that fight has to face Josh Kelly within 120 days or whatever. That may be the way he can go about it. And then obviously Terence will be at 154. Maybe he can then do a unification again with Errol Spence for those belts, or maybe find one of the other champions, go over to Matchroom and take on Israel Madrimov or something like that. But yeah, it's unfortunate for Tim, but you live and you learn. This is what happens when you deal with the PBC. Like, one way or another you get screwed, and unfortunately it was your time. But yeah, Warrior, I give him that. And it was a pretty competitive fight after the cut. Prior to the cut, it was one-way traffic. It was a foregone conclusion. But it was enjoyable to watch. I will give them that. Anyway, moving on from there, Sunday, big card at the O2 Arena, dubbed Bad Blood between Fabio Wardley and Fraser Clark. To be honest, it probably isn't Bad Blood. What they probably should have called it was No Going Back. That probably would have been a better title for it, especially with all of the whole purse bid scenarios and everything. That would have been, for me, a more apt title. But talking on the undercard very briefly, Alan Babbage versus Steve Robinson. I actually got there in the arena. They actually started a bit earlier than I thought they would, because I got there at 5:10, I think, or 5:15, and the match was already on. I thought they would have waited until maybe 5:15, 5:20 before that fight started. But yeah, from what I saw, it was pretty much one-way traffic. Alan Babbage, Steve Robinson looked durable, got a chin, but he looked dead tired from like the third round, and he was just taking shot after shot after shot. Never dropped off his feet. I'll give him credit for that. Referee jumped in I think it was in the 6th round. Steve Robinson was visibly upset. He's like, why? I was still throwing shots. He was throwing like these zombie shots, like they was moving in super slow motion there was no power on them. There was literally like just yeah. That's literally how the shots looked. Yeah. Like there was nothing on them at all. Whereas Babic is, he's putting his whole body weight behind everything, and the stoppage was right. Like Robinson's eye was messed up, and he was like, but it's funny because one of the people went behind and he was like, why did they stop it? Why did they stop it? He goes, no, but you was getting beat, you was getting battered. He goes, yeah, but I was okay in that round. And he's like, yeah, but look at your eye. Oh, it's not that bad, is it? The eye was bad. So yeah. But Babic also has a cut just over the bridge of it, over his eyelid, which is gonna keep him out for a lot longer than he wanted initially. So I'm sure he's not best pleased about that. After that, what was the next fight on that card? It was Callum Simpson against Mdula Mbabe. That was a nice little fourth round stoppage by Callum. Good good pressure, good shot selections throughout. Took some shots as well. Mbabe didn't come to just lay down. Credit to him. That was only the third time he's been KO'd in 14 losses. So Simpson's got some decent stuff to him, and he should be fighting Zach Chelli in the summer. So can't really complain. Then we had Vidal Riley and Mikhail Lawal. Now, in terms of an actual entertainment affair, it was a very boring fight. But that being said, it was also a clinic. It was a clinical performance by Vidal Riley. Constant movement, didn't allow Mikhail Lawal to have a stationary target at any point, because Mikhail needs to have his feet set in order to get the best out of him and his shot. So constantly moving back and forth, popping out the jab, double jab sometimes throwing the backhand in at the end of it. But yeah, it was pretty much to me it was a 10-round shutout. The referee, the judges, I think actually had it. Some had it 98-92, and one had it, I think, 99-91, from what I can remember. And then I was looking, I'm thinking, but what 2 rounds did they give Lawal? Because he was outlanded in every single round, and even the rounds where he threw power shots came back at him, even if they didn't maybe have the same amount of force. So yeah, when I was watching it, like I said, it was a 10-round shutout to Vidal Riley. Afterwards, obviously, him and Isaac Chamberlain had their little face-off, and there was supposed to be a face-off with regards to the belts as well. I knew that from the media day workouts, but for some reason that didn't quite happen. Then you had Chef Clark that sort of came in. He tried to gate crash the situation, because obviously they're talking about that, but he's the mandatory for that British title. And even Isaac Chamberlain was telling Chef, no, Chef, come in. So as Chef's obviously trying to come in, I don't know if it's management, I don't know if it's like security or some other people that's getting involved and stopping other people from coming into the area. And because of that, it then ends up coming off the screen on our broadcast. And I don't know what happened on the TV. I haven't seen the main card yet. But yeah, so there's that big little love triangle between those three at this minute. I guess we're gonna have to see how that plays out moving forward. But yeah, all good on that one. Then we had Ben Whittaker and Leon Willings. Now, this was highly entertaining. Maybe a bit underwhelming in the sense that most of us were expecting a Whittaker KO somewhere in those middle rounds. And it's funny because I was sitting next to Ra at the time, and we was talking about, he's like, oh, I wonder what kind of antics we're going to see from Ben here. And I said to him, wouldn't it be funny if Ben knocks him out in the first round and you don't see any showboating whatsoever? And then I say that, and then he actually knocks Leon down towards the end of the first round with, no showboating, no nothing, until when I think Leon gets up, tries to swing a shot, and then he starts doing, just doing what he does. And yeah, several times in the fight, it was highly entertaining stuff. He did take some shots. He says that he wanted to take some just to feel what the guy had, and he's got a good chin and everything. What I will say is, I do think he has a good chin, and yeah, there were sometimes he was inviting the shots to come in, but no one wants to take shots. So I think at times it was just a case where maybe Leon was either a bit quicker than he was expecting, or he had a bit more, maybe he was a bit trickier or a bit sneakier than Ben was predicting. And in that moment, he said, okay, I've got to do something to turn the tide in my favor, kind of thing. Or because I can't have people just assuming that this guy is, competing with me like that. So I've got to exaggerate a shot. I've got to do X, Y, Z. That's how it kind of thinks to me. Like in his mind, he's like, you're nowhere near my level. I can't have people thinking that you're doing this of your own volition. So let me ham it up. That's how I kind of looked at it. But I reckon probably when he went back to the changing rooms afterwards and he'd done his little media commitments, he would have been like, nah, there's no way that I'm supposed to be getting tagged like that by guys like this. Like something's got to change, or I've got to switch on and do better. He doesn't currently have a full-time trainer. I know he's training with his amateur coach at the minute. But yeah, he may have to look at investing in a trainer moving forward. A lot of people are saying Adam Booth. No, I don't want that at all. That's not the right move for him. I don't really know who in the UK is the best fit. Obviously, there are some international trainers who I would look at and say, yeah, that's who you need to be with. But again, it's the travelling back and forth, which he doesn't really want to do. Bozy Ennis, I think, would be a great trainer for Ben Whittaker. Ishmael Salas would also be a very, very good trainer for him. Manny Robles also, I think, would be able to put some good work in there, but I think the only two that would appreciate like his movements and the way he goes about things is Bozy Ennis, obviously that Caribbean connection, so he's all about rhythms, and so is Ishmael Salas, that Cuban. Everything is about working to the rhythm and the mechanics of an opponent. So to me, those are the kind of people that I would look at. But or even maybe Stephen Breadman Edwards. But again, those are all international. In this country, Grant Smith, Shane McGuigan are probably two. Pat Barrett, I think, might be a good trainer for him. But again, it just depends on how these people all gel. But that being said, it was a highly entertaining performance. It was, he pretty much dominated round after round. Ref gave Willings 2 rounds. I don't see how, because even the ones where he actually managed to land shots on Ben, he was still getting, pounded to the body, shots up top. He was still taking clean shots in all of those. So, but, that's the referee's choice, I suppose. Then we get to Florian Marku versus Chris Kongo. I predicted that Chris Kongo will win this fight. I did predict it would be a decision. I felt that Chris would basically, just use his boxing abilities, keep Florian Marku at the end of his shots. And when it gets to, I said potentially, he could, if Florian gets desperate at the end of it, he could start to, time him with certain things and take him out. Now, those first few rounds, I did 2 rounds apiece after 4. But it definitely looked as if Chris Kongo's strategy was to basically try and take away some of the sting from his shots in those first couple rounds, stay safe, stay competitive, but and then just basically work towards the back half of the fight. And you could see that he was investing into the body from quite early to try and slow down Florian Marku, slow him down. He was just investing into the body and just using range and using movement, making Florian have to move towards him. Florian likes to sort of leap in with shots here and there, but he also, as I said, he's arrogant enough to think that he can box with you. And I knew that if he tried to get into a boxing match with Chris, that wouldn't work. And then so you get those first 4 rounds, 5 rounds where he's a bit, he's being competitive. But then after that, now round 6 onwards, it's all Chris, and he's even starting to put a bit more mustard on the shots. Now, one thing I will say is some of Chris's shots looked like he was throwing everything behind them, but there wasn't much on them. So I don't know if that means that maybe that 147 is starting to become a bit difficult to make. So the power isn't where it needs to be. But he dug in, and obviously there's still enough there that he can slow his opponents down, which is what he did. Congrats to him. It's, if you look at it in terms of, he's had 3 opportunities at the big time, and he's finally on the 3rd attempt, got a big victory that's, going to put him in good stead for, those, again, back to the British title, the maybe a European or the Commonwealth, and getting back into that mix. So I'm really happy for him that he got it done. You guys know I don't show any bias when it comes to how I predict a fight. So, but I genuinely thought he would win, and I gave my predictions on basis pick as to how I thought he would win, and that's ultimately what came to pass. So yeah, big ups to him and much respect. Now, let's talk about the main event. Fabio Wardley versus Frazer Clarke. Now, this fight was a lot better than I thought it would be. I knew it was gonna be, there would be pockets of action. I thought, yeah, there'd be war here and there, but I didn't expect from the very first round it to really sort of, take center shape. What was very evident in basically the first 4 rounds of this is that the boxing IQs of both guys are, they are parallels apart. Like, Fabio has got good movements and good instincts, but Frazer Clarke is just well drilled. And if it was just if Frazer had the ability to basically control everything, control the pace of this fight all the way through, he probably would have won comfortably 12 rounds to 0 just by controlling the pace. But the problem that Frazer has is he only works at one pace, and when someone tries to switch that pace up on him, he starts to get a bit almost flustered. And that's kind of what we saw take place in the 5th round, because the first 4 rounds he was just boxing behind the jab, like just stinging Fabio with that jab. The backhand came into play every now and again. Those little uppercuts came in from time to time as well. Fabio's nose obviously busted up a little bit. But then in the 5th round, when Fabio decides to, he all of a sudden switched up his trajectory and switched up the rate in which he was going, he was throwing his shots and the combinations, and Clarke got flustered. He was trying to time him in between certain shots, but every time a shot sort of came over the top, it's almost like, I wasn't going to say he panicked, but it's like there was a microsecond of, okay, like what, okay, let me get myself back together. And he got caught with a shot which kind of looked like it buzzed him, and he ended up sort of circling around the ring trying to sort of get himself together. But Fabio obviously stepped on him, swinging shots, and then he comes to my side of the ring, and from there you see there was a shot that obviously it was landing, but from what I saw, it looked as if he had slipped. So even though the shot connected, I thought, oh, okay, I don't think he's that hurt, because I saw his leg slip from underneath him. I asked him that in the post press conference. He said, yeah, no, the shot did land. I was a little bit off balance, but it was definitely a shot. So I've got no issue with the knockdown being called. So, respect to him for being honest on that occasion. He got up, and then luckily at the end of that was the end of that round. So he got his minute back. Fabio took over again in the 6th round, very comfortably, but then Frazer won the 7th, even though he got a point deducted for a low blow, and also I think that was the second time his gum shield came out at that point. So I don't know if he was spitting it out trying to get a break, or it was just loose. I'm not sure, but the gum shield came out. He ended up getting the point taken off, but I still had him winning that round. I had him winning the 8th as well, and the 9th. So at this point, I had said my prediction for the fight was that Frazer Clarke would win either points decision or by 11th round stoppage. I think I eventually went with 11th round just to be bold. And then 10th round came in. It was a back and forth round. I think Fabio just about dug in to win it, but he was flagging. He took some big shots in that round and came back right at the end to sort of steal the round. And the same thing kind of happened in the 11th. Like, Frazer was landing big single shots, but he just couldn't follow up on him, and then he was basically leaning on Fabio, just trying to get some breath back after the one shot, and then Fabio would just just basically ended up outworking him right towards the end of the round and dug it out and stuck to it. And then in the 12th, I gave Fabio the 10th and the 11th, and then in the 12th it was like, okay, if Fabio gets this one, to me it's a draw on my card. If Frazier gets it, then he wins the fight by 2 points. And yeah, when I was looking at it, I feel like Frazier just did more throughout the round. He sort of composed. He sort of kept his trajectory. He kept his momentum going, and he kept sort of landing the cleaner, telling shots. Fabio managed to have a little last minute salvo in like the last sort of 10 seconds, 15 seconds, but a lot of them were blocked, and there just wasn't enough there for me to give him the round. So I gave it to Fraser Clark. So I had it scored 112, 114 to Frazier. And when I was listening to the scorecards, half of them didn't make sense to me. The whole 114, 113 to Fabio. So ultimately that means that that judge gave Fabio 6 rounds, and then they gave, what did they do? Did they give Frazier a score, like a draw round in there, and then the 2 points off? Or did they only take 1 point off? Because then Frazier got 116, 115, 112. So again, well, if there's 2 points that should have been taken off, was that another draw round that they gave? I need to see the scorecards, because I need to know, how it was scored basically, because the scores themselves didn't really make sense to me in how I was computing it. But it's fine either way. Look, it ended up being 113 as the last one as a draw. No complaints. Like I said, I had Frazier winning by 2 points, but the draw itself, like I said, that last round, I was tempted to give it the other way. So maybe the judge did, and if that's the round it came on, no problems with that. Neither guy, you could say, deserved to lose. It was one of those ones, but both of their stock rose. Even if there was like a winner and a loser, both the stocks would have risen just based on how the fight played out. But with a draw, I feel like, yeah, that puts both of them in a prime position for a potential rematch, maybe at the Ipswich ground. I know that's something that's being talked about. I know Fabio really wants to fight at the stadium, so I guess we have to wait and see what happens there. It could go back to the O2, and with a different card underneath, who knows. But yeah, look, that's pretty much everything wrapped up. I'm doing a video boxing, the boxing debate with October Red and Maestro A Boxing, and also Karma Serene will be joining us today because Danny Glover is currently enjoying his honeymoon with the wife. So yeah, look out for that. You should actually see that in about an hour. We're starting at 3 o'clock, I think. So yeah, look out for that. And I hope you've enjoyed this video. I've probably spoken for way too long, so I apologize. You know how I get. But yeah, leave a comments. Let me know what you guys think. Like, subscribe, and share. But that's the weekend wrapped up. More content coming throughout the week. But until then, I will catch you later. So have a safe one. Hope you've enjoyed your bank holiday. Peace.